Well, I must say that whenever a past or present distinguished graduate of the Academy looks in the mirror, they probably pretty much like what they see. They think that they worked hard during their time, made some good decisions, accomplished some things along the way that kept them moving up. But I think all of us, given some thought, realize that we certainly did not do it alone. There were many instances of just plain luck involved. In addition, many times helping hands were extended that moved us along the way, opened up new areas, kept us moving forward. And I'd like to talk about some of those that had to do with my own journey. I think they began here at the Naval Academy. I had an absolutely wonderful company officer for the last 2 years I was here. Those in 36th Company remember Lieutenant Bernie Eberline. He treated us in that company, especially the first classmen, as a wardroom, part of a team, heading for a common mission. He would set the places we need to go, never micromanaged us. And I think what motivated most of us during that time is we didn't want to let him down. He wasn't checking on us, he wasn't riding us, we just didn't want to let him down. And I always tried to take that atmosphere with me as I held various jobs in the future. Now later that year, and we're talking about 1968 now, that was a crazy year for the United States. Martin Luther King was assassinated, Robert Kennedy was assassinated, Washington was burning. ROTC buildings were being burnt down, and we were graduating from the academy and heading for Vietnam, except for Ensign Blair. He went to Oxford. I spent one term there at Oxford, and I thought, this is crazy. You know, everything here in a civilian foreign university is anti-military, anti-Vietnam, anti-war. That's my profession. I'm getting just pulled apart here. I'm going to leave, go back, spend time in the Navy, go to Vietnam, and then figure out what to do. So Diane and I packed up, we went back, and I went to the Bureau of Personnel, and I was taken in to see the head of surface officer detailing. And turned out that he was the father of a classmate of mine in the class of '68. And we talked a while. I told him what my position was, and he finally said, Ensign Blair, right now we have plenty of ensigns we can send to Vietnam. We don't have many we can send to Oxford. Go back. So I said, okay. And that sort of marked a turn in my life that really made a difference. A little bit earlier, the reason I went to see a surface warfare detailer was at selection night, and maybe it's the same here now, when you choose what branch of the Navy or the Marine Corps you want to be in. I had a pretty high class standing, so I walked up and plenty of choices were at the desk. My father had been a submariner. I admired him, admired his friends, and so I walked up to the submarine desk and said, I'd like to be a submariner, but you know, I'd like to be on those attack submarines. I don't want to be on those ballistic missile submarines that make big figure eights in the middle of the ocean waiting to take part in World War III. Can you guarantee that I'll be on attack submarines if I join? Sorry, son, he said. Midshipman Blair, you'll be assigned in accordance with the needs of the submarine service. I said, okay. Went to the next table over, which was surface warfare, and signed up. And it turned out, again, that was just a very lucky decision for me. I loved going to sea, being on it instead of under it or up on top of it. And in addition, as you saw in that video, I had a fairly unusual career in the surface Navy. Really nurtured and encouraged me in that career, always kept me moving up the operational jobs that you need to progress in that community. brought me back in when I went out to do something crazy in some other agency, and that was, again, an extremely fortunate occurrence. Now, fast forward about 10 years or so, I had applied for a White House fellowship, and the first interviews took place, and it looked like it was going to be pretty close to the date that our second child was going to be born. And in fact, Diane said, "Dennis, it's time to go." And that was the day before I was supposed to show up for this interview. So I called the White House Fellows Office and said, "Sorry, got some higher priorities, can't make it. I'll maybe think about this sometime in the future." So our daughter, unlike her older brother, was a relatively quick arrival. And when all of that had settled down, Diane was there, Pam was off in the incubator in the side room. Diane looked up, opened one eye, and said, "Aren't you supposed to be somewhere?" And I said, "Yeah, this is this White House Fellows interview," but I told him I can't make it. Here I am, you know, you've just been through a lot. Opened the other eye and said, "Listen, all I want to do is sleep. Why don't you get out of here and go down to that interview?" I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah. That's all I want to do." So off I went, managed to win a White House fellowship at that time, and again, that not only made a lot of different paths open for me, but it also was a great recruiting tour to stay in the Navy to see what happened on the outside. So final incident, fast forward to 1989. I'm a hot-running surface warfare officer. I was the executive assistant to the commander-in-chief of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. Major command selection occurred. I received my letter, and it said, I was just trying to think which Aegis cruiser I'd be in charge of, which destroyer squadron, and said, "You will report as commanding officer of Naval Station Pearl Harbor." I looked around to see if I was wearing my uniform wrong or what I'd done to get this dead-end kind of a job, and I read on down the letter, and I was part of the Naval Station Improvement Program. That is, making up for the neglect of underfunding and under-attention to naval stations all those years by putting some of the more highly regarded captains in charge of them. "Okay," I said, I'll go do my job and just be one victim of some program. It turned out to be one of the most challenging, educational, interesting jobs I had during my time in the Navy, and about a year into it, I got a call that said, "By the way, you've been selected for Admiral." So it's wonderful to have this award, and I put in some of the work to do it, and I'm happy to receive it, but I very much recognize that I'm receiving it on the behalf of a whole lot of people over many years who helped me out along the way, and a good bit of luck. Thank you.